In the last tutorial we looked at hit film integration and we did standard extruded text. In this tutorial we're going to do a slightly different version of extruded text in hit film, which allows us to add a different texture to the front of the text than to the side of the text. Theoretically you can also add something to the back of the text, but from experience it doesn't always work, but certainly you can have a different texture on the front and the side by using a different technique. So to do this we're going to follow the same pattern that we had in the last tutorial, except I'm going to move a bit quicker this time. Last time I went through the sort of the basic workflow. If you followed that then you'll be able to move fairly fast with this one. However, if you struggle to follow this tutorial I would recommend you go back and look at the previous one, which had a slightly slower approach. So I'm going to select the event in the timeline and right click on it, and I'm going to edit in hit film. And there we go, we can edit in hit film. Hit Film 2 will open. I've got Hit Film 2 Ultimate. You might have the standard version. Should be able to do this in either. And we come into the standard video editing line. Of course we want to make this a composite shot. So select the item, turn it into or make composite shot with this button here. And yes, we can leave the standard settings as fine, and we can click convert. And there is the item ready to create text. So we want to create the text that we want to use. Click the text button. Click and drag where you want the text to be, type your text, and then we can select the text, click and drag, and we can go to the text panel and we can format it. So I'm going to center justify it, take it to Arial, probably make it bold, and I'm going to make it a lot bigger. I think I'm going to leave it white, but I'm going to change the stroke to a light blue, and it's just going to have a small stroke just so that we can see what's going on. And I might make that a darker blue actually, just for example processes. There we go. So we've got a nice stroke on there. Now things are going to change as we apply the effects, so don't worry about the positioning of this, because they can always be positioned a bit later on, particularly when we've got the control point to be able to move things around. So I'm going to apply a different effect. I'm not going to do 3D extrusion. Instead I'm going to go to my effects panel and I'm going to type in here Shatter. S-H-A-T, and by the time I've typed that I've got Shatter. Click and drag and drop it onto my text layer. Now you can see it's changed slightly, and there's a problem. When I pull the playhead through, it shatters. Okay, we don't want it to shatter, we just want to extrude it. But look at these shattered pieces. Notice they have extrusion depth to them. And what we want to do is turn off the shattering and take advantage of the extrusion and the other options that Shatter gives us. So how do we do that? Well, we can open up Shatter either here, or if you remember over in the control panel over here. I'm going to just do it down here. Open up Shatter, go down to Physics and open up the forces. And then I want to take the strength of the force down to 0. At the moment it's at 500. Take it down to 0. You can see as I drag it down, it all kind of pops back to its original position. So you can see you can have a little play. So at 0, when I pull through, no shattering is going to take place, which is brilliant. So I can shut down the forces. So now what I can do is I can open up pattern. When I open up pattern, I got extrusion. And when I pull extrusion out, you can see it's beginning to extrude. But, I'm going to zoom in a tad, you can see it's looking really weird. That can be changed or corrected by going from the type of bricks down to custom. And when you go down to custom, you've got a nice straight side. So that's a fully extruded item. Now, to be able to do the other things that we did before, we need to be able to transform it from a point. And remember, that's done under the particular effect. You've got position. If I open up position, you see we've got this transform from option. So if we go and create a 3D point helper like we did before, so new layer, point, and then on that point we're going to make it 3D. So click the button and go down to 3D plane, and it creates a camera, which is fine. Yep, there we go, resets the view for us, which is great. And then we go down to this position here and we say transform from, and we take it down to the new point. I'm going to rename the new point. Actually, I'm going to right click on it and I'm going to go down to rename, and I'm just going to call it text control. Okay, enter. And then when I select the text control, open that up, open up its transforms, I can do Y rotation. You can see that there we go. We've got a nice, truly extruded 3D text. but the back looks a bit rough, and that's the problem with this particular approach. What you put on the back isn't going to look good. So it's great up to that point, so you can really go from one end to the other, but it's not so good when you actually look at the back. So that is a limitation. That will probably improve actually as time goes by, but at the moment the effect at the back doesn't look quite so good. So if we want to apply a texture to this, incidentally, if I want to scale it or move it, I can do that here. So let's zoom in by the Z position, drag it in a bit so you can see it a bit closer. There you go. So if I want to add a texture to the front and the side of this item, I shut down my control now. Go back to my effects here, my shatter. I don't need to play with position anymore, and I don't need to change the pattern. What I want to look at here is appearance. When I open up appearance, you'll see that I can change the front and the side, and theoretically the back, but the back, as I say, looks fairly rough. So what I need to have is items in my timeline to make this work. So I'm going to go to my media tab, and I'm going to bring something in. I'm going to bring in that photo that we've played with before. So bring in the photo, drop it onto my timeline anywhere I like, and actually turn it off. I don't even need to see it. So the eyeball's off, I can't see it. And I'm going to go to front, so under Shatter, Appearance Front, open that up and choose Photo 159. And there it is on the front of my image. Okay, now you can also create your own textures, but there's a bit of a gotcha and something you need to learn. But we're going to create a custom texture to go on the side. I'm going to create a new layer and make it a plane. And I'm going to call it Side Texture. Oops. Side Texture, and I enter to create, and it's a black plane. Okay, that's fine, it doesn't matter because we're going to add an effect. And the effect, so I'm in my effects tab, click the X to get rid of what's there. I'm going to type fractal, F-R-A, well in fact FR brings up fractal noise. Drop fractal noise onto that layer. And it comes up with this amazing looking fractal noise picture. And you can animate fractal noise significantly. Okay, there's a lot you can do to animate it. Click these little buttons to animate it, but I'm not going to animate it, I'm just going to go with what it is. Obviously you can choose all kinds of different looks, so wisp, whatever you want to go to. Okay, I'm going to probably just leave it at clouds at the moment. Okay, so just at clouds, and then I'm going to add another effect to colorize it. Now you can colorize it in a number of different ways. I'm just going to X that off and go to color correction tab here. I could colorize it, for example, with levels or with curves probably. You could colorize it with a number of things. I'm actually going to use the color wheels. Click on color wheels and drag it down and drop it on that particular item. Then I'm going to open up the color wheels and open up the master controls. In fact, this time I am going to open it up over in the controls over here because you get a much better view. So if I open that up here, you see I get the color wheels. Highlights, midtones, shadows. So I want my highlights going sort of slightly purple. So everything that's really white is going to purple. And my midtones I'm going to take to green. And to my darks, I'm going to take those to blue. Okay, so I'm just sort of colorizing these as we go through. So I'm creating something a bit odd. You can play around with it, change the colors however you want. You know, it's up to you, but that is colorized. Okay, so we've created this wonderful color, and now what we want to do is apply this as a texture. However, if I turn that off and I go back to my layer which has got all my text in it, so text, which is here, new text, and I open up the shatter effect, and I go down to appearance and I choose side, and I choose that plane, side texture, I get black, which is the color of the original layer. The problem is that the shatter effect isn't looking through the effects, it's just looking at the base layer. And what I need to do is I need to bake in the fractal noise and the color correction onto the layer so that the appearance, so that when it looks at this layer, it's not ignoring the effects but looking through them. They're part of the layer. So to do that, what I actually need to do is select this layer. I'm going to turn it back on for the moment and make a composite shot of it which kind of bakes in the effects. So select the layer and make a composite shot, but I need to be careful. Okay, take composition shot properties from the selected layer is fine, but what do you want to do with the effects? Do you want to leave them here, or do you want to move them with the layer? Well, I want the shatter effect to look through those effects, which means they have to be part of the layer. So I'm going to move them with the layer, and I'm going to click convert. Okay, now I can go back to the original composite shot. I can actually turn it off now. I don't need to see it. And notice the side of my item now has actually got that texture applied. So if I go back to my text control point and I just was to rotate that a little bit more on Y so you can see it, you'll see that the side of it has actually got that texture applied. Now the back's still going to look fairly rough. There's not a lot that I can do with that at the moment, but certainly on the front and on the side you can create some really interesting looks. And then when it comes to the shatter controls themselves, if I go back to my text and I go back to my effects, open up shatter, notice that you've got things like motion blur, but you've also got illumination. And I open up illumination, you can use comp lights. You could, if you liked, use your own selected lights that you've brought in as we did last time, and then you can play with materials, which really only work once you've got your own lights created. Once you've got your own lights created and you're using those, you can have some very dramatic effects. So that's how you can apply a different texture to the front and the side. It's not going to give you bevel options. Now if you remember, BCC has got tremendous bevel options, and when we look at Zach's works in the next one, you'll see that that's got great bevel options. You haven't got bevel options on the text that you've created, but you can still create and animate some amazing text. Now if I click Save, and I go back to Vegas Pro, and give it a moment to update, you can see end of the day is brought in, and any animation that I had created would be brought through. Okay? I hope you found this tutorial useful. My name's Andrew Davis, and thanks for watching.